Hi, I'm Niraj Bhasin, vascular surgeon and chair of the Circulation Foundation. I'm so pleased to be able to launch our third podcast, Circulation Foundation Explorers. And this concludes our focused social media output for Vascular Health Awareness Month 2024. Before we start, I wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who's taken part in this year's Body Walk. Also, we are immensely grateful to those people who ran on our behalf in the Great North Run. Your sacrifices, mental and physical efforts will support us in fulfilling our three aims of as a charity of raising awareness of vascular health and the conditions we care for, supporting patients and their carers, and funding vital research. The other main piece of work that we launched this month is our new website. This would absolutely not have got over the line had it not been for Gail Ryan's energy, enthusiasm, and dedication. It's a new, modern, bright, and engaging website, and we can now be proud to signpost people to that. And I feel it reflects the professionalism of the charity. The main resource on our website is the 26 patient information leaflets. These have been refreshed and there's new ones created by colleagues from across the country in their own time. Again, we're so grateful for their time in supporting the CF so we can ensure that our patients and their families are well informed. Coming back to the podcast, I'm so excited to introduce this to you. CF Explorers is a conversation with Chris Imray, consultant vascular and transplant surgeon, and Leah Musto, vascular surgery trainee. These truly inspirational individuals discussing their previous and future challenges whilst raising funds and awareness for the CF. Their journeys are truly epic, and it's fascinating to hear about such massive achievements in such a humble way. I'm also really pleased that they've been able to relate their achievements and the challenges they've faced back to some lessons for everyday life. It really has been a pleasure and an honor to speak to these two colleagues who I am proud are part of our vascular community.
Hi, my name is Chris Imray. I'm a vascular surgeon based in Coventry. I have a particular interest in high-risk carotids and open surgery, particularly visceral revascularizations. I've been in post now for, it's close to 30 years. It's a frightening thought, and I've had a brilliant time. So the Inspire expedition was an expedition to try to do research going to the South Pole. This is very challenging in its own right. It's 1,000 kilometers of skiing, very challenging conditions. And what we were going to do is try to complete that, but also to do research. The particular research that we were looking at is a strand of research that I've been chasing for 3-4 years now. Which is looking at the metabolic tariff, the cost of traveling on these very long journeys. Quite a lot of my work has a slant to it, which is looking at translational benefits, trying to look at something that might affect fit individuals and how it might be relevant to our patients. I've done quite a few big challenges over the years, but the South Pole expedition, it was a challenge in its own right to go to the South Pole. Could it be done? Another challenge was how could it be funded? Now, my background is in research, and in particular research in extreme environments. And so it seemed entirely logical that it should be research-based. One of the things that keeps cropping up in my mind is how fit or unfit some of our patients are, and would there be some sort of benefit that might come out of this research that we could transfer to our patients? So not only could I get a benefit and get to do what I wanted to do, but I was hoping we might learn something that would be useful to how we perceive our patients and how we might be able to look after them better. research is crucial to understanding how to do things better, whether that's in an extreme environment and how to be better nourished and arrive in a better state and be at less risk of doing badly on such an expedition, or in our patients' case, it's how we might be able to help them either walk further, we might be able to save their leg, that sort of thing. And the Circulation Foundation has been very generous to us over the years, sponsoring research looking at claudication studies. And it seemed entirely appropriate that we should return the favour, not only by doing the research and trying to walk or exercise, but we should try to raise money to sort of complete the cycle, if you like. And there's a sort of a nice completeness to us researching on ourselves that might then benefit patients. The Inspire Challenge consisted of 9 participants. 6 of them were in the military and 3 of them were civilians. Having got the group together, most of them were fit individuals. Quite a lot of them hadn't skied a great deal, but they were fit and strong. I brought in experience, and you can read into that age and possible debility as well. But anyway, I do have a record of having completed 1 or 2 fairly challenging trips. So that was how we sort of got the team together. Training, we were lucky in that most people were fairly fit when we started, but we began to train both on our own, but also as a team. And if everyone remembers, this was back in the time of COVID and we couldn't meet up very readily. So we did quite a lot of virtual training where we would agree that on such and such a weekend, we would all go out into local countryside. And for me, this was the Cotswolds, just south of Coventry, and do a certain amount of exercise. So we were training like that. So that was the basic training. We then went for a trip to Norway to actually experience a week of skiing in cold conditions. And that was in many ways tougher than the actual expedition. It was much colder. It was a sort of wet cold in Norway that we didn't get in Antarctica, which is a dry cold. It sounds slightly perverse, but although the temperatures were higher, the feeling of penetrating cold was worse in Norway, or seemed to be. And then finally, once we got everything together, we did the basic research that we needed to do before leaving, and then did the research on the ice. One of the really big moments for me was when we got out of this DC-3 on the ice. The DC-3 is a pretty old plane. It's 70 odd years old. One questions whether planes should really be flying at that age, but in fact, they don't build planes quite the way they used to. There's too much electronic gizmos, and this is a very much a mechanical plane. So the plane dropped us there with all our kit, bundled it all out quite quickly. There was quite a wind blowing, and we just sort of huddled while the plane taxied on the snow, and then with a great roar of the engines, blew huge amount of snow all over us, and then disappeared into the distance. And for quite a while, you could hear the roar getting quieter and quieter. And then eventually it lifted off and banked away, and we were just left in this sort of open void where there was just the horizon, and 1,000 kilometers away was our destination. And suddenly you realized you're on your own and you're going to have to do the best you can. I think I've grown quite a lot over the years as a result of various expeditions, and I think the beauty of going to remote places and spending time there is it gives you time out of your very busy life. And I think a lot of us rush through life without quite taking stock, and all of a sudden, as Pink Floyd says, 10 years have got behind and all the rest of it. You need to take stock as you go through your life. So it gives you time to sort of get balanced and think about things. I alluded to earlier that getting the basics right is crucial in whether you're in a remote environment or whether you're in an operating theatre. And if you get the basics right, everything else will fall into place. In terms of sort of management and how you sort of participate in hospital life or surgical life, or in my particular case, I was very lucky to be involved with the VS Council. I think there's a sort of quiet confidence in some ways, because you've done a lot of things, but also I think you realise that, certainly for me, a leadership style that's a more collaborative in nature, where you're suggesting and hoping that people take on these ideas, and they have to be well thought through and carefully thought through, rather than having a very authoritarian approach where you can get cross with your stove, but it's not going to turn around and work. You need to say to your mate, I can't get this to work. Can you help me? And be humble about things that aren't going quite the way you'd like them to. So, I mean, I've learned a lot over the years, and in some ways, the South Pole was a culmination, if you like, of many years in austere environments. But I do like the challenge of trying to go to fairly challenging places and get that margin of safety just right, pushing yourself as far as you can without an adverse outcome. And in some ways, I think that's what we're trying to do with our patients. We're trying to put them through the best procedure, which for someone young and fit might be a very, very challenging procedure. And yet for the person who's coming towards the end of their life, it's still very challenging, but you need to change what you do, and that your approach to how you deal with them to reflect that. But in each one, you're trying to push the individual to the limit of what they can get away with for the best result without having an adverse outcome. So I see similarities in my decision making that comes from one and feeds into the other area. For me, I think the biggest challenge was, could I keep up? There were people in this team that were out of the Special Forces, out of the Royal Marines. They are 25 years younger than me. And was I just completely crazy to think that I could do an expedition with individuals like this? So that was my big concern at the start. And it was back to doing an hour at a time, not getting too overwhelmed by how long it was going to go on for. And gradually you build in confidence as you realize actually you can keep up, and you have skills that they don't have in terms of how you look after yourself. And so I think gradually I became aware that this actually was going to be fine. I was going to do this, and the fear I had, the concern wasn't going to be realized. I could cope with this. And I'd like to think, again, that reflects the way all of us can approach challenges, where we might look at them and feel they're very daunting, but breaking it down into little chunks, hopefully you can come up with a strategy and an approach that will get you there. And people talk a lot about well-being and being in the moment. I think I was a bit of a cynic about all that, but actually there are moments where you just have to focus on what you're doing for the next 15 minutes, the next hour, whatever. And if you try and tackle the enormity of it, it's overwhelming. So yes, I learned something there which I'd sort of been a bit cynical about, but I do believe it's an important way of coping with these challenges. I've spent my lifetime working in vascular surgery with vascular paths, and I think they get a bit of a raw deal, if I'm honest. I think even now, with the poor relations, there are good diseases and bad diseases to have, and I'm afraid that I don't think there are enough people doing interesting things for the CF, and that's because we don't have the number of supporters and the breadth of supporters the way the British Heart Foundation has, for instance, or cancer has. So personally, because that's what I deal with, I'm really keen to raise money for them, but also to just raise awareness, because I think that's part of it. And talking about these issues is one way of dealing with it. Raising money for it makes a big difference, I think. And as I've alluded to earlier, the CF have been very kind in supporting research that we've done on our patients. It seemed a logical extension to try to raise money, doing something that our patients could very much understand, the challenge of trying to walk for 7 hours for 50 days. Lucky enough to be involved with the Circulation Foundation whilst I was sitting on council, and I think one of the impressive ways in which it's developed is it's got broader representation on the panel. And so I would like to think that the panel should be making the decisions. The exact directions are not for me to determine. I think you need a mix of basic research, of clinical research, and things that are relevant to our patients. So if there is a particular issue that our patients have, the danger is that we end up researching basic science, which they don't feel is relevant to them and may not be relevant to them. I think that's a really good question, Niraj. I've never actually planned these trips in quite the way it appears. The 7 summits gradually emerged as I did more of the higher peaks. And that once I'd done 5 or 6 of them, then it was obvious that I needed to complete it. The South Pole was something that did appeal to me. And it was particularly the research that we've been doing that led me in that direction. There's something called the Explorers Grand Slam, which would be to do the North Pole as well. But I'm afraid we are facing significant global warming, and to do the North Pole properly, that's to say, going from Baffin Island to the North Pole, it hasn't been done now for 10 or so years. So I think that's highly unlikely. I think to go and do the last 100 kilometers is a possibility, but I can't really justify the carbon footprint just so I can tick a box. So I'm not quite sure what I'll do next. I mean, I'm traveling around having a lot of fun and enjoying what I do, and something will come up, I'm sure. But I've not got any particular plans at the moment. I've been blessed with being fairly fit throughout my life, but I've enjoyed it, being fit, and I wouldn't say I've striven hard to keep fit and to do these challenges. They've sort of fed off each other, and I've arrived in my 60s in reasonable shape. But I do think that the quality of our lives is very much determined by our health, and some things we don't have control over, and others we do. And vascular health, I think there's very much a individual component, a patient component. And I think one of the problems we've got is that we don't empower the patients with enough responsibility for their own health. They come to us expecting us to fix their problem, rather than us understanding that we need to enter a contract where I can do certain things and the patient has to do certain things. The most obvious one would be not smoking, or taking more exercise, or controlling their weight. But these are things that we don't have mature conversations with our patients the way I think we should. So I'm very keen, and I've been fortunate, as I say, but I'm very keen that we encourage our patients to be more responsible themselves. But for that to work, we need our clinicians, doctors, nurses, AHPs, to lead that conversation as well.
My name's Liam. I'm a specialty trainee in vascular surgery. that is a qualified doctor in the years before becoming a consultant. I've currently paused my clinical work and I'm pursuing a PhD, so I'm working full-time in research these years. I'm also, alongside this, a event and expedition medic. So I work as the doctor for sports events like ultra marathons, triathlons, multi-sport events, and also expeditions abroad as the doctor looking after athletes or participants. My PhD is in the theme of aneurysm screening. So I'm trying to raise awareness and answer the question about what should we do about screening in the future. So probably in the next 10, 15, even 20 years, screening will be no longer cost effective, and we'll have to look for probably alternatives or different ways of doing it. And I'm trying to answer that question by looking at different avenues. So February this year, I climbed Kilimanjaro, Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. I climbed it with 30 other participants, all doing it for charity. Many of these people had never climbed a high mountain before, or the highest they'd ever done was Snowdon, and they'd never been to high altitude. Kilimanjaro is 5,895 meters tall, so it's the tallest mountain in Africa, and it puts it in the severe high altitude zone, so where the oxygen is about 50% of what's available here. So it's quite an achievement to be able to make it to the top. And yeah, that was basically the challenge that we did this year. I'm also hoping to go on and do another challenge next year for the Circulation Foundation Body Walk. So the Body Walk basically aims to achieve 60,000 miles of travel, which is the length of the human circulatory system, and do it collectively by encouraging people to walk or run or cycle as much as they can in the month of September. And I was thinking, how can I do 60,000 miles of anything? So I really wanted to hit that number. And I even did the maths, and it would work out to about 170 miles a day. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I can't do 170 miles of anything in one day, yet alone every day for a whole year. So I then convert the number to feet, kind of cheating here. And I've always wanted to do the climb all the mountains in England, Ireland, and Scotland. And I worked out that if I did a fair amount of the P600s, which is the mountains which are 600-meter tall at least, that I can reach that 60,000 feet level. So that's kind of a huge challenge, but it's something I'm going to try and do next year with the support of my friends and colleagues. I mean, I'm a keen outdoorsman, love the outdoors, love being in the mountains, active, running, cycling, walking, hiking, you name it. Any excuse really to be in the mountains. And I love a challenge, I'm going to lie. Pretty goal-oriented personally. And obviously I also have a passion for wilderness medicine and remote medicine. And I was offered this very rare opportunity to be the medic for Kilimanjaro. So, you know, it ticked all the boxes. I'm also African by birth and grew up there. And so another excuse to be back to the mother continent, as it were. So yeah, it ticks all the boxes, and yeah, just really keen to do it. So that was Kilimanjaro really. This is for a good cause as well. The mountain challenge for next year for the body walk, just raising money for a very good charity. Really keen to raise awareness and put the Circulation Foundation out there. I think it's a relatively small charity that's compared to the other big behemoths of the charity world, let's say. But yeah, I'd really like to push it. And I guess a lifetime goal of mine has always been to climb on the mountains in the UK. And so that kind of adds towards it. So yeah, looking forward to it. With the local screening program, we run this kind of patient day, and often I give a talk there about something related to improving your health. And one year I did, for example, high blood pressure and what the effects of hypertension is. This year, the last time I did it on exercise, and I was kind of blown away with the benefits of exercise. It really is the panacea or magic bullet in medicine, honestly. I couldn't really not find a disease or a condition that it benefited. And I think the one it probably benefited the most, alongside mental health, was your vascular health. So yeah, yeah, exercise is just an essential. There were loads of fantastic memories. I mean, from the beautiful views to the wonderful people, the porters, the guides, and the participants themselves. I think things that stand out has to be at the end after people have summited the mountain. I mean, the challenge, like I said, is a lot of these people had never been to a high mountain or done any challenge like this before, and seeing the kind of transform, even though they were physically exhausted, mentally exhausted from what is a really long day, the summit day is super tough. They all had this kind of new lease of life, you know. I think when you do something that challenging, it almost, I don't know, it's life-changing. I'll say that. In terms of the challenge, I've described it a little bit already, but Summit Day is a monster, let's just say. It's really, really difficult. You get up at 11 p.m. And you set off at midnight, and you set off at near enough 5,000 meters, so the oxygen levels are low. It's freezing cold. On the day we did it, it was a wind chill of minus 15 degrees. It's pitch black dark. All you've got is the head torch on your head to light what is effectively the slope in front of you, which looks entirely the same for the next 8 hours. And it is a climb for 8 hours straight. Imagine being on one of those stepping machines in the gym for 8 hours. It really is tough. It's a real test, both mentally and physically. I mean, you're rewarded at the top. If you're on schedule, you'll get there just as the sun rises and lights up all of Africa in front of you at the crater rim. And then it's just another hour till you're at the actual top of the mountain. Really physically exhausting. And you asked me what do we gain from this, or what do I ever learn from this? And I think kind of what I think is that struggle, hardship, or even challenges like this are really, really important. I think it's the only real way that I know, or we know, that to build resilience. I think you need to go through hardship or struggle in some way if you want to build resilience. And I think not only do you build that, I think when you do something particularly tough, it also helps you kind of appreciate the little things, things that may seem pretty simple, just a pizza or a Sunday roast, but when you've been camping for weeks, they taste so much better, honestly. And you know, company you might miss, your spouse, your family. I think when something's tough, yeah, I don't know, you have a new lease on life after you come out of it. And I think when you do something like this, I think well, people that go through particularly tough things, they tend to have a growth mindset. Once you've achieved a challenge like this, you know that, okay, I can do this. The easy answer is that, you know, I'm a vascular surgery surgeon in training, and so the Circulating Foundation is, you know, it's our charity. You can argue, you know, it's all that we have for vascular patients, specifically the vascular patients, let's say. I work for research predominantly in aneurysm screening, and I'm kind of shocked every day how often I encounter people don't know what an aneurysm is or what it entails. There's a lot more awareness can be raised, let's say, and I think the Circulation Foundation plays a role in that, absolutely. And I know how much you guys, or the Circulation Foundation, has donated to research, and again in that world, so I see that. And so, yeah, lots of reasons why I want to raise money for them. Well, I think Circulation Foundation does a lot of this already. And I guess I want to see more, really. I mean, the three things I think of when I think of the impact that Circulation Foundation can make is A, awareness, as I mentioned, awareness of vascular diseases, vascular health, education, a kind of portal for patients and clinicians to share information about research or the disease itself and managing these conditions. And then in research, I think grants for research or funding towards research and ideas and collaborations, especially. I think collaborations within research is the way forward. So, and yeah, any of these kind of three pillars that you guys are already contributing to would be really good.
I really hope you enjoyed watching that as much as I did making it. Thanks to Jay and Georgia for doing all the work to create this. And we're really grateful to Chris and Liam for supporting the CF in such an inspiring and unique way. You can also support the CF in whatever way you can. You absolutely do not have to go to the South Pole or climb mountains. Please do visit our new website and encourage others to do so. And thank you for taking the time to watch the Circulation Foundation Explorers.